You're not crazy for feeling like no one understands you. You're not weak for craving deep connection, but always ending up alone. You're not broken. You're not cursed. What you're experiencing is something very few people ever truly go through. You're not just different. You're chosen. And with that calling comes a loneliness so deep, so personal, that even words can't explain it. But there's a reason behind your isolation. And the truth will bring you peace. You've always felt it. Even in a room full of people, something in you still felt distant, disconnected, like your soul was watching the world, but never really part of it. You smiled, you laughed, you played the part, but deep inside, you knew something was missing. And the harder you tried to fit in, the emptier you felt. That's because your spirit wasn't made to conform. It was made to transform. And transformation requires distance. It requires silence. It requires separation. Chosen ones are isolated not because they're unworthy of love or connection, but because their frequency is too high for shallow spaces. You see deeper. You feel more. You sense things before they happen. That sensitivity isn't weakness. It's divine perception. But the world doesn't know what to do with that kind of depth. So instead of embracing you, it avoids you. People sense your light before you even speak, and that light reveals what they're hiding. That's why you make some people uncomfortable. That's why they distance themselves without even knowing why. It's not you. It's the truth you carry. You're walking a spiritual path that can't be fully explained. Most people live in distraction, in noise, in superficial cycles. But you've always been pulled towards something deeper. You crave purpose, not popularity. Truth, not trends. Your heart beats for something eternal. But the higher your calling, the narrower your path. And the narrower your path, the lonelier it feels. That's the cost of being chosen. You're being called to operate in a different dimension, one where very few can walk. And here's the part that hurts the most. The people you thought would understand you the most often don't. Family, friends, loved ones, sometimes even those you help the most are the ones who turn their backs. That's not because your love wasn't real. It's because they weren't able to receive it. Your presence challenged them. Your growth reminded them of their own stagnation. And instead of rising with you, they chose to retreat from you. It hurts. It cuts deep. But it's also necessary. Because chosen ones are not built in comfort. They're forged in solitude. In the late-night tears. In the unanswered prayers. In the moments when no one checks in. In the silence that feels like abandonment. But it's in those very moments that your true power begins to rise. When no one else is speaking life into you, you learn to speak it into yourself. When no one else believes in your dream, you learn to stand on faith alone. When no one shows up for you, you realize you've been walking with God all along. You're not alone because you're unworthy. You're alone because you're being refined. Isolation is not a punishment, it's preparation. The divine is removing noise from your life, so you can finally hear your own soul clearly. You're not being rejected. You're being protected. Every person who walked away wasn't meant to see the next version of you. They were part of your preparation, not your destination. And their absence is making space for something. And someone far greater. You may look around and feel like no one gets you, like no one truly sees you. But in the spirit realm, your presence is known. Heaven is watching. The angels are assigned, and even darkness recognizes your light. That's why the attacks come when you're closest to your breakthrough. That's why everything feels heavier right before you rise, because the enemy wants to convince you that your loneliness is evidence of your failure, when in truth, it's evidence of your elevation. You're not invisible. You're hidden by divine design, hidden so you could grow in private, so you could learn the difference between fake love and real connection, so you could develop spiritual discernment that doesn't get fooled by sweet words. You've been isolated so that when the right people come, you'll recognize them by energy, not by appearance. You'll feel their truth. You'll know their soul. and you won't settle for anything less than what aligns with your spirit. This season of solitude is sacred. It's not permanent, but it is purposeful, because what's being birthed in you requires your full attention. You can't carry divine vision while entertaining distractions. You can't step into your assignment while surrounded by people who don't even know who they are. You've been called to rise. And sometimes, rising means rising alone. But here's the beauty of it. Once you embrace your solitude, you begin to see the strength in it. You realize you were never truly alone. You were being aligned. The quiet seasons teach you to trust your intuition, to hear God clearly, to recognize your triggers, your patterns, your gifts. They strip away the noise so your soul can finally speak, and what it says will shake everything around you. So if you're in that place right now, that heavy place where you feel unseen, unheard, unwanted, know this: your loneliness is not the end. It's the beginning of your awakening. You're shedding everything that's no longer in alignment. You're stepping into a version of yourself that's so powerful, it requires a clean atmosphere. And anything or anyone that can't match that frequency will be removed. You were chosen, not for the crowd, not for the spotlight, but for a purpose so divine, so specific, that few will understand it. And that's okay. Let them misunderstand you. Let them walk away. Let them label you. What they call isolation, God calls consecration. What they call loneliness, the Spirit calls preparation. And when the time is right, your tribe will find you. The ones who see you, feel you, understand you, not just with their minds, but with their souls. You were never meant to blend in. That ache inside you, the one that keeps you awake at night, the one that makes you feel like you don't belong anywhere, it's not a flaw. It's your compass. It's your reminder that your soul is tuned to a higher frequency. While others are content with surface-level conversations and shallow distractions, you've always longed for depth, meaning, truth. That longing isn't a burden, it's your divine guidance system telling you that your purpose is greater than your present surroundings. You feel alone because your spirit is stretching beyond the borders of the familiar. You're not who you were last year, maybe not even who you were last week. And when your energy shifts like that, everything around you begins to feel off. Conversations that once felt comforting now feel draining. Environments that used to feel safe now feel suffocating. It's not because something is wrong with you. It's because something is awakening in you. And that awakening is causing a spiritual separation from anything that can't go with you to your next level. This is where it gets real. Because when you're chosen, there comes a point where the loneliness becomes crushing. You look around and wonder, why me? Why does everyone else seem so connected, so carefree, so understood? And you're out here feeling like an alien on your own planet. But the answer is simple. You were never meant to fit the mold. You were meant to break it. And sometimes, in order to break something, you have to stand apart from it. This is not punishment. This is precision, divine refinement. Your isolation is intentional. It's where your identity is being clarified, where your voice is being refined, where your vision is being sharpened. This is where God removes every crutch so that when you rise, you know exactly who held you through the pain. No crowd, no applause, just the quiet hand of God guiding you in the dark, molding you into the kind of person who doesn't need the world's validation, only divine confirmation. You're being taught to walk by spirit, not by sight, to trust what you feel in your soul even when nothing in the physical supports it. That's why you're alone, because the noise had to die down for the whisper of God to be heard. If people were still around you distracting you, you'd miss the instructions. If you were still entertaining empty conversations, you wouldn't be able to discern divine revelation. The silence isn't empty, it's sacred. And in it, everything you need to know about your assignment is being revealed. There's something about chosen ones. They feel everything so deeply. Joy, pain, energy, shifts, loss, love. It's overwhelming at times, But that emotional and spiritual sensitivity is your superpower. You see through people. You sense the intentions behind their words. You feel atmospheres shift when you walk into a room. That's not random. That's alignment. That's discernment. But with that gift comes a price. You can't connect with just anyone. Your spirit has a filter. It knows when something or someone is off, even if your mind hasn't caught up yet. And when your spirit says no, you feel it as isolation. But here's the truth. It's better to walk alone in alignment than to walk surrounded in spiritual confusion. It's better to be misunderstood while protecting your peace than to be accepted while compromising your soul. You weren't created to be everyone's friend. You weren't designed to be liked by the masses. You were chosen to move in a way that forces everything around you to reveal its true nature. And that kind of presence will always be met with resistance. So what do you do with this loneliness? You embrace it. You sit with it. You ask it what it's here to teach you. Because loneliness doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to reveal you. To show you who you are when there's no one to impress, no one to perform for, no one to lean on. It's in that space that your most authentic self begins to rise. And from that place, you learn how to love yourself in ways no one else ever could. You start realizing that being alone doesn't mean being abandoned. It means you're being reacquainted with your soul. You're learning how to breathe without pressure, how to move without manipulation, how to hear your own thoughts without external noise. That clarity is priceless, because from it, you begin to attract differently. You stop begging for energy to stay. You stop chasing people who never valued your presence. You stop tolerating what you once excused. Your spirit becomes louder than your loneliness. And that's when everything changes. You realize you're not lonely. You're rare. And rare doesn't fit in. It stands out. Rare doesn't beg. It attracts. Rare doesn't chase. It carries gravity. And the moment you own your rarity, the loneliness begins to shift into solitude. A space where you find peace, purpose, and power. You begin to feel God in the silence. You begin to feel clarity where there once was confusion. And suddenly, your isolation becomes your incubation. This is where your new self is being formed. Not the self the world tried to mold. Not the version of you that was trying to be accepted. But the real you. The spiritually grounded, emotionally balanced, divinely guided version of you. And that version doesn't need a crowd. It needs calling. It doesn't need noise. It needs purpose. It doesn't need popularity. It walks in quiet authority. You're not crazy for craving solitude more than shallow company. You're not weird for needing space to hear your soul. That's what chosen ones do. They retreat to refuel. They separate to elevate. They disconnect from the world to reconnect with their assignment. And when they emerge, they are different. They don't speak from theory. They speak from fire, from experience, from a place that can't be faked. So if you're feeling deeply alone right now, if you're crying silent tears wondering when this phase will end, hold on. You're not breaking down. You're being broken open. The pain is birthing purpose. The silence is shaping strategy. The loneliness is making room for new levels. You may not see it yet, but your future self is already thanking you for staying strong in this season, for not giving up, for choosing your soul over social validation. You didn't come this far just to collapse under the weight of your emotions. You didn't survive everything you've been through to give up in the quiet. The silence you're feeling right now is not abandonment, it's alignment. It's preparation. God removes every false thing before He releases you into the real thing. He takes you through the dark not to hurt you, but to strip you, so that when you walk into the next season, you're not walking with doubt, confusion, or broken identity. You're walking as the chosen one you were born to be. You've been carrying a spiritual depth that many people around you can't handle, and that's not your fault. You're not too much. You're not too intense. You're not too sensitive. You're exactly as you should be. And it's the world that's been too shallow to meet you there. But don't shrink yourself just to feel seen. Don't water down your truth just to be accepted. Your soul wasn't made for surface level anything. It was made for spiritual legacy. Yes, it's heavy. Yes, it gets lonely. But the loneliness you feel isn't punishment. It's divine separation. You were being pulled away from what was never meant to hold you. You were being shown that peace is more valuable than presence. That connection without purpose is empty. And that true intimacy starts with the soul, not appearances, not words, not attachment, but spiritual alignment. You had to feel what doesn't work, so you can now recognize what does. This is where you begin walking differently. You stop chasing people who aren't meant for you. You stop explaining your heart to those who've already made up their mind. You stop questioning your worth just because someone else couldn't see it. You begin choosing you, not out of pride, but out of protection. Because the most sacred thing you own is your energy, and not everyone deserves access to it. You're not lonely because you're broken. You're lonely because you're healing. You're returning to yourself. You're discovering who you are outside of who people told you to be. That's holy work. That's soul work. And it requires space. It requires stillness. And that's why the divine removed the noise. Not to make you suffer, but to help you see. And now that you see, you can't unsee. Now that you've felt the presence of God in the silence, you won't go back to empty distractions. Now that you've realized your power doesn't come from people, you'll never again beg to be understood. You're learning to walk with authority. Quiet, spiritual authority. The kind that doesn't need to be loud to be felt. The kind that shifts energy when you enter a room. The kind that even the spirit realm recognizes. You've gone through seasons of crying yourself to sleep, wondering if anyone sees your heart, if anyone truly gets you. But the truth is, the right ones will. They're coming. And they won't be confused by your depth. They won't be afraid of your light. They won't need explanations for your silence. They'll feel your spirit and say, "There you are. I've been waiting for you." That connection, real, divine, soul-aligned, is not a fantasy. It's a promise. But to receive it, you had to first become it. You had to become what you've always looked for. Peace, stability, depth, alignment. You had to embody it, because chosen ones attract what they are, not what they wish for. That's why you couldn't settle. That's why you kept walking away from things that looked good but felt wrong. Your spirit wouldn't let you stay small. And that's the evidence that you've been walking with God all along. Look at your journey. Really look. Look at what you've survived. Look at the things you thought would break you, but didn't. Look at the people you thought you needed, but grew past. Look at the prayers you whispered with shaking hands, and how you're still standing. You are not weak. You are not invisible. You are not abandoned. You are chosen. And chosen ones go through the fire first, so they can lead others out. You've been chosen to be the one who doesn't fold under pressure, the one who doesn't stay stuck in bitterness, the one who turns pain into power. Yes, it's been lonely, but that loneliness has made you wise. It's made you strong. It's made you spiritually alert. And now, you're no longer afraid to walk alone, because you know you're never truly alone. You are guided, you are protected, and you are dangerous to anything that moves in darkness. That's why the attacks came. That's why the confusion hit. That's why you were misunderstood, because darkness knew what you were carrying, and it tried to break you before you could realize your assignment. But it failed, because here you are, wiser, deeper, more aligned than ever, and you haven't even seen your full potential yet. What's coming will make sense of what you lost. What's coming will feel like home to your spirit. You're not late. You're not behind. You're right on time, because divine timing doesn't follow human clocks. Your tears have been collected. Your prayers have been heard. And your isolation was never for nothing. It was sacred. It was protection. And now you're walking out of it with power. So let this be your confirmation. You're not crazy. You're not cursed. You're called. You're chosen. And everything you've walked through, every lonely night, every closed door, every silent season, It's all been leading to this moment. You're about to walk into rooms that your spirit has already prepared for. You're about to connect with people whose energy feels like peace. You're about to live in alignment, unapologetically. Because the most powerful version of a chosen one is the one who no longer runs from solitude, but masters it. And from that place of mastery, they move different. They speak different. They love different. And they lead others home. You are that chosen one. And now, your time has come.